Hey, what's going on, folks? My name is Hellbent, and in this video what we're going to be doing is creating from scratch a pixel search script that allows you to search for multiple colors in a sequence. This video comes as a special request by a viewer who's been using my Pixel Predator for a while now, and they often have to use multiple copies of it. From them, they say 4 copies of it, but it introduces some problems. So they actually offered to pay me to create some changes to my Pixel Predator script, but maybe I can save them a little bit of money, create this video and show them how to do it themselves, and then if they want they can add that in, and eventually I'll get around to adding in those kind of changes, because the changes that basically the script that we're going to be working on today is something I had started working on a while ago, but the one that I had worked on a while ago had a lot more bells and whistles than we're going to be doing in this video. This one we're just going to be making a very simple GUI. It's not going to have all the options that my final tool has or my other version of the Pixel Predator has. We're going to be doing something very stripped down. I'll make a little drawing of it in a second. But let's have a look at what the old one is. So if you're not aware, I have a tool on my home page. If you go to the second column down or second row down, you should see a section called Auto Clickers, and in there there's this thing called Pixel Predator. All this does is it allows you to do pixel search. So here I have a little test target program. I can set a color to be this little blue square, and if I click on that blue square it moves. Right, so I've set that as my color. Set my search area, and then if I hit start, it's going to search for that blue color, find it, click on it, and then search for it again. Oh, here, let me click. There we go. So it'll click, and then I can make it go faster. I can send keys. There's a whole bunch of other things that this does besides just click things, but there. That's basically what we're going to be making. We're going to make something that can do that, except for multiple colors. Now, like I said, I had started working on another version of it that did allow for multiple colors last year. Actually, before I had actually created this version, the current version that you see here, I had actually started working on a second version that had multiple colors, but I never ended up finishing it. I got distracted with other things. Let me see. Is it tools? I don't know. Yeah, I think it's tools. So this would be a much more elaborate than what we're going to be doing in today's thing. So with this version here, you could set up to 6 different searches, and then it had a whole bunch of different options that you could do. And like there's a bunch of things that are still not added in here, but like it did a whole bunch of things that the original version didn't do. But we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So let's start. How about we do that? We just start. So if you want to follow along, what I suggest you do is make sure you have AutoHotkey installed on your computer, because this is an AutoHotkey script. You can't write AutoHotkey scripts or run them unless you have AutoHotkey. So go ahead and get that if you don't. And an editor. You can just use plain Notepad if you want, but I recommend getting a better editor. The one that I'm using is called Site for AutoHotkey and can be found at the AutoHotkey forums in the editors subforum. So let me make a little drawing so that way I can plan out a little bit what I want. So how big is this? Okay, so what I'm thinking is just have a little basic window, and then have a bunch of different colors. So the guy had asked for 4 colors, but let's go with around a better number. Let's go with 5. So what I'm thinking is maybe have a checkbox for all 5 colors, and if you check that checkbox, it means that that particular search is enabled. Beside that, we'll have a color that represents the color that we're looking for. So perhaps it's red. So we'll have a red box here, whatever color we want it to be. Beside that, we'll have a button that allows us to actually change that color. So we'll say, if we press this button, change this color. right? And we'll have one for each of the five different colors that we want to search for. So if we set this one, maybe this one's green, right? And it has a checkbox. Then we'll set maybe a button to set a search area. So if we click on this button, we can then click and drag a certain area of our screen, and then perhaps either we'll display the X, Y, width, and height of those positions, or perhaps, I think better yet, what I'll do is create a second button that just allows us to see that position again. So this sets the position. This allows us, if we want to later on, we can press this button to see where it was that we set. With pixel search, you can often do things like you can do something like check if the color is there or if it's not there. So you can do a true or false. So maybe we'll do some radio buttons that say, you know, if we want it to be true, we do this one, and then if we want it to be false, we'll do the other one. So we can tell our program whether we're looking to see if the color exists or whether the color doesn't exist. And then maybe we'll have another set of radios that will do, if you set one of them, it'll click. Actually, clicking and moving are tied with the true or false, so maybe we won't do the false. Maybe we'll only do that it assumes true. So this thing's only going to work when you're looking for a color. So if that color exists, then that. Or it moves. Or perhaps some other option. Maybe it sends something. I don't think I'm gonna add in the send. So you can send keystrokes or whatever you want if it finds a color. But if you add in, if we don't end up adding in this, then what you can do on your own end is add in the true or false. Maybe we'll add in the true or false either way, but the click and move won't work properly if it's not looking for a color. So let's say that normally there's this red circle right here, and I have it saying, okay, watch this area to see if there's red. If there's red there, everything's working fine. Don't do anything if red is there. But if suddenly red disappears and there's no more red in there, then I want you to do something. Well, if red's not there, I don't have a position to click, so I can't very well use a click option, and I can't use a move option. So but I could use a send option. I could use a bunch of other options. I could send text, send clicks to a specific area that's not where it's supposed to be here. But that only works if I have the true or false, and the true or false would only make sense if I add in the send. Or send. So I'm not sure if I'm going to add in the send or not, but that's where the true or false would come in if I want to have more options there. Let's see. So set the color, set the position, tell it what I want it to do, and then do it. Run and stop. Yeah, I think that's I think that's it. I think that's it. So let me put this to the side so I can remember, and let's just get into it. So I'm going to create a new script, and let's begin. I did get a request in my last video that people on like using their smartphone or whatever have a hard time seeing. Now that's not my fault. My eyes, I can see perfectly, and if you're on a screen, you should be able to see the text perfectly, but I'll be nice this time and I'll zoom in a little bit. But this hurts my eyes, so I'm not going to do this in every video. So I zoomed in a little bit. I'm going to start off the script with single instance force, which means that if the script is already running and I run it again, just close out the old one. I'm going to exit out of the auto execute area, and then I'm going to add in GUI close. which is a label that's attached to the X button of the GUI that we're going to create. I'm also going to add in, for testing purposes, because I like to be able to just right-click on the GUI to exit it, I'm just going to add in GUI context menu, so that way if I right-click on it, instead of popping up a menu like this, it's just going to exit out of the script. I'm also going to add an escape hotkey. And if I do any of those things, if I click on the X button or right click on the GUI, or if I press escape, all of them are going to exit the app. Alright, I want this script to run a little bit quicker than it normally would, so I'm going to do at the top of the script, I'm going to say set batch lines to -1. This is just going to eat up a little bit more of the idle processing time, make the script run a little bit faster. After that, I'm just going to create my GUI. GUI, I'm going to call it GUI1, which is the default, so I don't actually need to call it GUI1, but I always do this, so this is what I'm going to do. And now I'm going to give my GUI some options, like always on top. So my GUI stays always on top of the other screens. I might need some other options, but I can't think of them any off the top of my head. But I can think I don't like the gray color for the GUI, so I'm going to say GUI1 color. And I'm going to set its color to, let's say, 222222. So now it's going to be a dark gray color. Because I'm using that and the default text on a GUI is black by default, I'm going to have to change that font color. So I'm going to say GUI1 font, and I'm going to set that font color to C for color to white. C white. If I want to use a custom color, I can also just do, let's say white would be FF. So this splits it up into its RGB values based on a hex code. So each one of these represents a number between 0 and 255. So this is red, green, and blue values. If I put all of them up to their max, 255, 255, 255, or FF, that's white. If I want it to be red, it's FF0000. Or if I want to make a darker red or some other shade of a lighter red, maybe it's 4444, whatever. But we're doing white. I can type that. There's actually a keyword called white, so I can just type white. Because we're going to have multiple checkboxes, multiple color indicators, multiple buttons in this first part, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put those all into a loop. So I'm going to say loop 5 times. And I will make this script available at the end. So in the description there should be a link to a pastebin page where you can get the final thing of this. But really this is more about teaching you how to do this so you can create something better yourself. So what do I want? I want checkboxes, I want color indicator, which I'm going to use a progress bar, and I want buttons. So I'm going to say GUI1 add checkbox. Checkbox, I'm going to position it on the X margin, and I'm going to leave its Y wherever it goes, and I'm going to attach I'm not going to start it off checked, I'm going to leave it unchecked, because this is to enable. So when I run the script, when I run the pixel search script, it's only going to, even if I have all the different colors set, it's only going to run the ones that I have the checkbox set for. So I'm going to call this check, and because I have it in a loop, and I'm going to do some things later on with it, I know I want to do, I'm going to set this to be check. The variable's name is going to be check, and then whatever current index I am in this loop. So if it's gone through this loop 4 times, the variable's name is going to be check 4. If it's the first time through, it's going to be check 1. So that's the variable's name. If I click on that, I'm going to attach it to I'm going to make it go to just a generic submit all kind of subroutine. So I'm going to call this subroutine submit all. I'm going to attach this to I'm going to attach our radio. I think I'll attach our radio buttons to the same thing. Submit all. So I've put that there. Now I need to add it down here. So after all of that, paste that in, add a colon to the end of it, and now I have my label. For testing purposes, before I do anything, I'm going to make sure that it's actually going where I want it to go. So I'm going to put a tooltip and just say here. So if I click on this checkbox, it's going to jump down to here and it's going to execute this tooltip that'll say, hey, I'm here. And beside that, I'm going to say, actually, that's a better name for it. I'm going to call this, instead of calling it check 1, check 2, check 3, check 4, check 5, I'm going to call it enable. Enable 1, enable 2, enable 3, enable 4. Alright. Since I have that in there and I want to be able to test that it's going into that submit all, I'm going to drop down to the bottom here and I'm going to just show the GUI. So I'm going to say GUI 1 show, and I'm going to let it size itself. I'm going to let it determine how big it's going to be based on the controls that I add to it. So I'm not going to add a width or a height, but for testing purposes, I don't want it to pop up here every time. So I'm going to do is I'm going to move it over here a little bit. So I'm going to say my screen resolution is 1366 pixels. I don't picture that this window is going to be that big. So I'm going to say if I position it at about X1000, it should sit in the screen. So X1000, Y100, so I'll make it, when I pop up the window, it'll pop up somewhere over here. So it's not in the center of my screen. And then I'm just going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it Pixel Search Script. Alright, don't need all that extra white space there. Alright, if I run this now, oh, I need to save it. So let's do tutorials. Pixel GUI tut. Alright, so there's my GUI. I think I can move it over a little bit. I'm going to move it over to 1100. So right now this GUI is really small because it just has these checkboxes, but as I add more controls to it, it'll automatically size itself to accommodate those new controls. So if I click on those, like I said, it should come down into here and give me that, and that's what it's doing. So that's done. All I want it to do is when it executes this subroutine, all I want it to do is update the GUI with all the values that it should have. So if the checkbox is checked, the variable associated with it should have a 1. If it's not checked, it should have a 0. So all I want to do is I just want to make sure that those get all updated properly. So GUI 1 submit, comma, no hide. So I'll submit all those values into the variables and then don't hide the GUI once I submit. Alright, so that's the check boxes. Like I said, beside that, I'm going to do some progress bars for displaying color. So GUI 1 add progress. I'm going to position it beside it. So I'm going to say X plus 10 pixels. So take whatever the ending position is here, add 10 pixels, and then start drawing my next control. The width I'm going to do, let's say about 20 pixels, and a height of about 20 pixels. And a background color. This is going to be the default color that it starts off with. I'm going to say, let's go with a gray color. 777777. I'm going to attach a variable to this, and I'm going to call it color. And once again, I'm going to make this an array of variables. So I'm going to, in between percent marks, I'm going to say the current index. So I'm going to have 5 different variables that start with the word color and then followed by a number. So it's going to be color 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Color 1, color 2, color 3, color 4, color 5. Alright, I think that's all I need for that. So let's go ahead and display that. So now beside these, I should have 5 gray boxes. And there we go. So these are my color indicators now. Beside those, I'm going to add GUI 1 add button. I'm going to position the button 10 pixels away from that last control, so X plus 10. The width and the height, I'm just going to let it do itself. For here, though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a variable to it. I'm just going to call it but, and then a index. So I'm going to have but 1, but 2, but 3, but 4, but 5. And I'm going to attach these to a label that is set color. So when I click on the buttons, they're going to execute a subroutine called set color, which is, I don't need that space there. It's going to be down here. And inside of here, I'm going to do the tooltip here to make sure that I don't have any bugs. So if I click on this button, it should give me a tooltip that says here. Okay. Now I'm going to put some text on it. Set color. Alright. If I click on that button and it comes down to here, what I want to do is I'm thinking a loop. I'm thinking I'm going to have a while loop. This is let me just type out the way I'm going to go. So I'm just going to type out a while loop, and I'm going to say while exclamation point, which means not, while I'm not doing something, or while something is not. So while not get key state, and then the key that I'm looking at is control. This is what I usually use for this kind of thing. So as long as I haven't pressed control, loop. If I still haven't pressed control, loop. So as long as I haven't pressed control, keep looping over and over and over and over again. While it's looping, the first thing it's going to do is going to pop up a tooltip that gives me some instructions. So it's going to say, how about hover over a color and then press control to lock it. Okay, so there's my prompt. So as soon as I press that, it's going to have a tooltip that follows my cursor around that keeps telling me hover over a color and press control to lock it. While it's doing that, I am going to get some position. So I need to know where my cursor is. So to do that, I'm going to use chord mode up at the very top of my script, third line down for this example, chord mode. And I'm going to say the chord mode for my mouse is going to be relative to the screen. Because I'm also using pixels in this, I'm also going to set chord mode for pixels, anything to do with pixels, to also be related to the screen. So any positions for my pixels or any positions for my cursor are all related to my screen. So I'm going to say, now that I have that, I'm going to say mouse get position. So get the position of my cursor. Put the x position that my cursor currently is in a variable called tx for temporary x variable, and ty for temporary y variable. That they aren't actually a thing. It's just that's just how I write temp x, temp y. So get the position. Now that I have the position where my cursor is, get the color that's at that position. So I'm going to say pixel get color. And then it gives me this option. So I'm going to say out color is the variable that it's going to give me that contains the color. The position that I'm going to be looking at is tx, ty, and I want to use the RGB format rather than the blue, green, red, or whatever. Green, blue, red. I don't know what it is. Is it GBR, BG? I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, we want to make sure that it's RGB. So it's red. Red is the first two colors. Green is the second two values. Blue is the last two values. Get that color. While it's doing that, I want to know while I'm hovering over, if I'm hovering over something that's really small, I want to make sure that it's actually hovering over it. So what I'm going to do is while I'm doing that, I'm going to update the color of this to match whatever color I'm looking at. So to do that, what I am going to do is I'm going to say GUI Control. So I'm going to interact with a GUI Control. And the GUI 1 is the GUI that I'm going to be doing, and the option that the subcommand I'm going to be doing is the background. So I'm going to change the background of a specific control, which are the progress controls. So I'm going to say background. I don't know why I always put G as uppercase, but I don't know. It's just I always do. Background, and I'm going to make the background color of that in % marks. I'm going to say the out color. So whatever color I get from pixel get color, I'm going to change the background color of these to be that color, or whichever one I currently have. To do that, I need to know which one of these buttons did I press. Because if I press this button, I don't want it to change this color. I want it to change this color. So how can I do that? Well, anytime a subroutine is triggered from a GUI, so if I hit a button here and it launches a subroutine within that, there's a variable called a GUI control. So it looks like, anyways, the variable is called a_GUI control. And because I've attached variables to each of these buttons, so it's button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, I know which button it is. It'll tell me as soon as I click on it, it will, in that variable, a GUI control, it'll tell me the variable's name, which would be button 3. It'll say but3. So what I need to do now is I need to figure out which one that I have. So to do that, I am going to make an expression. I'm going to use an expression, so I need to put a % mark here followed by a space, and then in quotes, because all my progress bars are the same thing, I'm going to start in between quotes. I'm going to put that color, but I don't know which color. Like the variable's name is color 1, 2, 3, or 5 through 5. I don't know which one it is, so I need to figure that out. At the same time, what I'm going to do is, because I might want to use that variable, that number again in a minute, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put it in a variable. So I'm going to say, I'm going to create a variable called ActiveControl. So this is just going to store that number. And I'm going to say it equals the substring. So I'm going to, every single one of these, because I know that it's only this button here that's going to launch this subroutine, I know that the value that's stored in a GUI control is always going to start with BUTT. It's always going to start with BUTT. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to get rid of that BUTT and just keep what's the number at the end. So I'm going to say substring sub str open and close parentheses, and then what string, like I said, when I click on this, there's a variable, a GUI control, that contains the control that launched this subroutine. So I'm going to look at, that's the string I'm going to be using, a GUI control. And I'm just going to get rid of, start at position 5. So I'm going to get rid of the first 4 characters from that control's name and just keep with the number. So this should give me, if I click on the third one, this should, ActiveControl variable should equal 3. If I click on the 4th button, it should equal 4, whatever. Now, normally you would do this as its own line, but with AutoHotkey, we can, in this expression syntax, I can put all of this in the same line. I can create a variable and set its value in the same line that I'm doing all of this stuff. But to maybe make it a little bit less confusing, what I'll do is I'll take this, copy, delete it from there, and up at the very top here, actually before it comes into the while loop, I'll do it before it comes into the while loop, because it only needs to do this once. It doesn't need to do it every time it's looping. So I'll say ActiveControl equals the 5th character, starting at the 5th character of whatever the variable's name. So it's just going to be the number. Now in here, I'm going to do color ActiveControl. So it's color followed by 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. That might make it a little bit easier for you to read it. Change that color. If we press Control, turn off the tooltip. If we press Control, I want to, even though this is going to be, let's say if I picked blue, this is going to look blue. It's going to know it's blue, but that variable that I'm actually using for that progress, it's not going to contain any information. I'm just using it as kind of like a flag to say, hey, this variable is associated with this control, but it doesn't contain any values. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that now and put the value that I want in it. So I'm going to say color inside of %marks ActiveControl equals out color. Okay, so that's set. So now when I run the script later on, it's going to know that it's that color, that color, that color. Do I need anything else? I think this is it for that. So now we have our buttons. If I hit set color, I get this message that says hover over color, and as I move over different colors, we can see that this updates. And then if I hit control, it should lock that color. That color gets locked, everything gets updated, and we're good. So that's that part done. Next, adding some buttons. So here, set position. So we need some buttons. So outside of this loop, we're not going to be looping anymore. Outside of the loop, I'm going to add GUI 1 add button. I'm going to set it on the X margin. I don't care about its width or height. I don't need any variables associated with it, but I do need to send it to trigger. I need it to trigger a label. So I'm going to say, call it set area. Yeah, set area. Down here, add in that label, add in the return so that way I don't forget. And then in here, what am I going to do? This is going to get a little bit more complex. So what I'm thinking is that when I click this button, it's going to go down into the subroutine, and in here I'm going to create a variable and set its value to 1, and then use that variable as a way of turning on and off some temporary hotkeys. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So usually I create a variable, I usually call it active, just because I usually know what that means to me. So I'm going to say active equals 1. And then I'm going to create a context sensitive area. So I'm going to say pound if, and then space, make sure you add the space, and then I always add it in parentheses, but I don't think you actually need the parentheses here, but I always do it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say if active. So in other words, if that variable active that I just created there, if that has a value, any value at all, then go ahead and these hotkeys that are in here can be activated. Once I'm done with all those hotkeys, if I add it, so all the hotkeys that are related to this active variable, I'll put inside of here, and then if I need to add any more hotkeys afterwards, I make sure I add it after. So this enters it, this exits it. So anything in here is context sensitive. The hotkeys I'm going to use are just like, I click on that button, and then the next time I click my left mouse button, that's when I start dragging. So I'm going to do L button. L button is one of my hotkeys. When I click, I'm going to hold and drag, and then when I release, that's when it's done drawing. So I'm going to look for L button up as my second hotkey. And then the last hotkey is I'll make, if I right click while I'm drawing my section, then it's just going to cancel it. Which I probably don't need because I have this up, but I'll add it in anyways. I use it for a couple other scripts. I use the same kind of thing where it's more necessary, but I don't think it's really necessary here, but I'll add it in anyways. So I have three hotkeys that if the set area variable is active, then these are now hotkeys. Up in here, I'm going to create a second window. Because I'm actually, you know what? Because I'm going to be using, I said I want to have two buttons. I want to have a set and a view button. What I'm going to do is I was going to put my GUI in here, but instead what I'll do is I'll call up another label. I'll say go sub go sub. I'll have it go to another label called build display GUI. Because otherwise I'll need to do two things in order to have the GUI built for when I'm creating the draw area or the second area. I could probably, if I thought about this after I'm done, I could probably incorporate things a little bit better, but I'm doing this off the top of my head. So I need to keep making progress. Go there. Inside of here, I'm going to say GUI2, if it exists, destroy it. If it doesn't exist, nothing happens. But if I accidentally try to create the GUI twice in a row, it'll just destroy the older version. Next, I'm going to give it some options, GUI2. So that way it doesn't have its own little box down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to be owned by the first window, which will also, since the first window is set to always on top, because I'm going to set this as the owner, then this window will automatically be always on top as well. So I don't need to do that here. So I'm going to just say owner 1. So GUI 1 now owns this window. So it's not going to, it doesn't have this. It's always going to sit on top of this window if they overlap, etc., etc. Owner 1. This window here, this second window, I'm going to make a semi-transparent window that just, so when I click and drag, it draws a box around the search area. So because of that, I don't need all this border stuff. I don't need these buttons or anything like that. So I'm going to get rid of that by adding in the option -caption. Because if you're using a different DPI scale than 100%, it might draw your GUI a little bit bigger or smaller. So to prevent that, we're going to use -DPI scale. Because I want to make it a semi-transparent window, I'm going to use WinSet. So to do that easily, I'm just going to make this plus last found. And -caption DPI scale. I might need some other option, but I can't think of it off the top of my head, so we'll come back to that if we need to. Next, I'm going to set the GUI's color, GUI2 color. I'm going to make it lime. That's a nice green color. And then I'm going to say WinSet transparent, and I can set a value between 0 for completely transparent, 255 for completely opaque. I want it to be semi-transparent, so I'll set it somewhere in the middle, let's say about 120. WinSet transparent. So I'm not specifying a window here, and I can do that because of this last found that I put there. So this now knows that it's meant for that GUI. What do I want to do now? I think I don't need to do anything else here. I think I don't need to do anything else there for now. So back up to here. So if I click the set area button, it comes in here and it activates my hotkeys. Then it goes and builds this GUI, but it hasn't shown it yet. To show it, what I'm going to do is in here, I'm going to, as soon as I click and start drawing my box, I'm going to get that position. So I'm going to say mouse get position. And I'm going to call this SX for start X and SY for start Y. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a timer. So this is basically a loop, but it's a little bit less. It's perhaps a little bit less intense on it. So I'm just going to use a timer. Set timer. And with this timer, I'm going to draw display area. To draw search area. I can call this anything I want. It's just the label. And I'm going to have it do this every 30 milliseconds. So it's going to do it pretty quick. Okay. Inside of here, I need to think here for a second. Inside of here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the new position that I currently in. So mouse get position. Mouse get position, and I'm going to call it new X, new Y. No, you know what? The reason why I was doing it like this to begin with is because in order for you to do a search pattern, up until recently, you had to do, unless you use the slow mode, which I can't use on my computer, it crashes my computer if I use slow mode for pixel search. But you would have to, unless you use slow mode, which I said I can't use, your search area would have to start from the top left corner down to the bottom right corner. So when you type in the values for your search area, it would be X1, Y1, X2, Y2, but it would have to be starting from a corner up here down to a corner down here. Recently, if you get as long as you have the most recent version of AutoHotkey, and they actually did this a couple of months ago. I've never tried it yet, so I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it should work. So make sure that you have an up-to-date version of AutoHotkey before you try this. But what we can do now is wherever I start, so if I start here and then draw up to here, that's how my search pattern is going to be. It's going to be, I'm going to start here, search this way, and then go up, search this, search this, search this. Instead of searching here, 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 it's going to now search from here, over, go up, over, up, over. So I don't need the start X and X. I can just actually keep that as, hey, that's X1. That's where my search is going to start. And Y1, that's where my search is going to end. This is going to be X2, and this is going to be Y2. But I still need to display a GUI, and a GUI does not work that way. I can't draw a GUI starting from here going up to there. So I need to do something with this to tell my GUI how to draw itself. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to do this as a ternary statement rather than an if statement, just to bring it down, the code down a little bit. So I'm going to say if x2 is less than x1, or in other words, if x1 is over here but x2 is over here, that's where I want to start drawing my GUI. I want to start drawing my GUI from using the x2 position. But if x1 is here and x2 is here, I want to start drawing my GUI from the x1 position. So I need to make sure that I have that correct. So I'm going to say if x2 is less than x1, then the GUI's x position, so I'm going to say, what do I want to call this? How about GUI x? gx colon equals x2. So that's where the GUI's x position is going to start. And the GUI's width, GUI width, GW, is going to equal the x1 position, the one that's further over here, minus the x2 position, which is over here. x1 minus x2, which gives me my width. So if it went from 100 to 400, then my width would be 300. Other words, that means x1 is less than. So if that's the case, then gx colon equals x1 and gw colon equals x2 minus x1. Alright, so that covers the width and the X position of my GUI. Now let's do the Y position. So if Y2 is less than Y1, question. If it is, then GUI Y is equal to Y2, and GUI height is equal to Y1 minus Y2. Yes. Other words, GUI Y is equal to Y1, and the GUI height is equal to Y2 minus Y1. I think that makes sense. Now I can show the GUI. You know what? Because we're going to have that show button, what I might do, I might just have this, I'll add this go sub. Here I'm going to go sub draw GUI or show GUI. Build the GUI and show the GUI. Alright. Go sub show GUI. Okay. Where am I going to show the GUI? I am going to show the GUI. So in here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to say GUI 2 show. I did it such an awkward way. I don't like how I'm splitting it up like this. Maybe when I get a little bit further along, I'll see something that I can change it up a little bit, but for now I'm okay. So I'm going to do this as an expression, so all my literal stuff is going to be in between quotes, and my variables are going to be outside of quotes. So this is GUI X quote space Y. Make sure you add that space. GUI Y quote space W quote. GUI width quote space H quote. GUI height. Alright, so I think that should work. So now that's while I'm holding down, so I hit set position and then I click somewhere and start dragging. As I'm dragging, it's going to constantly be showing me that GUI, that transparent green GUI. When I release the L button, what I want it to do is I want it to turn off that. So I'll say set timer, draw search area off. What I'm also going to do is, because I'm done with this stuff, I'm going to turn off this active variable. So I'm going to say active now equals 0. So these hotkeys don't work anymore. Active equals 0. Likewise, if at any point I do this R button, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to turn off the drawing routine. I'm going to do that, and I'm also going to destroy the GUI. GUI 2 destroy. Okay. I think that's good. Oh, so let me add some text onto that. Alright, so I have my button. If I click on this, it's not going to give me any prompt. So maybe while I'm drawing, maybe in this draw in here, maybe I'll add another tooltip that maybe I'll just add a beep. I'll add a beep. If I click on this button, it'll give me a little beep that says, hey, it does at least acknowledges that I did click on the button. So inside of set area subroutine, I'm going to say sound beep 500 megahertz, or yeah, hertz, 500 hertz, not megahertz, 500 hertz. Okay, so now that I've pressed that, the next time I click my L button, it should start drawing. And if I move it this way, it should know where to position the GUI. Alright, so that's that. Once I release the L button when I'm done drawing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it wait a second, and then I'm going to have it destroy that GUI. Set search area, wait a second, destroys. Now I could add an edit. Like these here, but really it's not necessary. Instead what we're going to do is we're just going to add another button that allows us to view back where we had set. So I'm going to duplicate this line, and I'm just going to change a few things about it. So I'm going to say x plus 10. This is going to, I'm going to set this to go to view area. Okay. View area and view search area. Here's where I'll find out quickly if I can actually maybe I'll find out if I can condense some things. If I hit view area, I want to build the display GUI. So go sub build display GUI, and then I want to go. I think this is fine. I think the way it is, I think this is where ShowGui. So build GUI, ShowGui. What I'll do is I'll have, before it goes to this show the GUI, or before it does any of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if there's actually values for those variables, G, H, G, Y, because if I can't view where it's to draw the window if I haven't set the search area. So what I'll do is I'll say if not GW. So if there's no GUI width, then obviously there's no GUI. If not that, then what I'll do is I'll pop up. Now a lot of this stuff here, these conditions, these tests, to make sure that I've set things up properly, I'm going to leave a lot of this stuff out. So you're going to be the one to add in, like did you actually set a color before you start the script? I'm not going to add in this test. You're going to add in the test. Did you set the color before you tried searching for it? I don't know. You're going to have to write a test. Here I'm just going to say you must there. If the GUI hasn't been set, it's going to pop up a message that says you must set the search area before you can view it. Dumbass. Alright, perfect. Let's go. And And then if that's the case, then what we're going to do is just return. It's not going to build the GUI. Okay, so if I view the search area, you must set the search area before you can view it, dumbass. Alright, let's put this on a new line. Yeah, good enough. So let's set the search area. When it's done setting the search area, I'm going to have it play a beep again, just so that way it knows. So as soon as I release this button, before it sleeps, I'm going to have it play another beep. So 500 hertz. So when I click this, it'll beep, and now I can click and drag, and then as soon as I release my mouse, it'll beep again. And there we go. Alright, so that's that. Now I should be able to view it. Knock on wood. Okay, so let me make sure that's the right spot. Oh yes, view search area. So here, as soon as it shows it, I'm going to sleep for 1 second. And then I'm going to destroy it. Set search area, blah, view search area, okay, view search area. And now depending on which way I draw it, so if I draw it this way, it'll search this way. If I draw it this way, it'll search this way. If I draw it this way, it'll search this way. And if I set it this way, that's weird. Why did it do that? I don't know. For some reason it didn't remove the caption that time. That was weird. Alright, but anyways, there. Okay. What do I have next? Click or move. So, like I said, this is where I'm going to add in those radios. So I've decided we're up to almost an hour, so I'm not going to add in the true or false. But hopefully you'll be able to get the sense of that. I'll explain it when we get to the adding in the code that actually does it. Let's see. I'm just going to add in click or move. So this is just going to click or move. But like I said, I can add in more options if I want. So I'm just going to say GUI, under all those buttons, I'm going to say GUI 1, add radio. I'm going to position it at the X margin, width, height, doesn't matter. I am going to drop it down, Y plus 10. And what do I want here? Okay, so this is going to be part of a group. By default, I'm going to set the first one to be move. So by default, this is the thing that's checked. So you don't accidentally. So if you're just setting it up and you accidentally press start, you don't want it to start clicking on you, but it will move. So I'll say checked. Is it checked or checked? I think it's checked. Checked. This is variable. I'm going to call this click or move. And I'm going to use the same variable for both. So it'll, instead of having a 0 or a 1, so this, when I click on this will either have a 0 or a 1 as its value. I'm going to add in some radio buttons. Now I could have them that they have a 0 or a 1, but I can also use them as a group, use the same variable for both of them, and then instead of having 0 or a 1, it'll have a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or however many options I have. So whatever option I select, that's the number it's going to have. And I'm going to attach this to a label, that subroutine label, that submit all label, because that's all I need to do, is I just need to update the variable. Submit all. Go there. And then the text is going to be move. I'm going to duplicate this line. I'm going to do get rid of the Y. I'm going to get rid of the group and checked. I'm going to get rid of the variable name. And I'm going to change XM to X plus 10. And I'm still going to attach it to that label. And this one is going to be click. What I'll do is I'm not going to fully implement this, but I'll add it in just so you know. I'm going to duplicate this again. Everything here is going to be the same, except this one I'm going to change to send. So now it's going to be, when I click on these radios, when I look at their values, it's going to either be, if I select the first one, it's going to be 1 or a 2 or a 3. And later on I'm going to test what is the value of click or move. Does it have a value of 1? If it does, do this. If it has a value of 2, do this. If it has a value of 3, do this. Okay, so I think that's good. And I think I can run. So move, click, or send. Okay. Like I said, I could also add in the true or false. Now, the true or false wouldn't work for the move or click, right? Remember what I said. It's only going to work. These would only work if you selected true. So there's no point in me adding it in until you have at the very least, send implemented. Because that's pretty much the only thing you're going to be able to do. Or you can click a very specific point. So like I can set my search area to search here, but I can hard code it to click over here. Not where it found the color or didn't find the color, but some other position. But that's to do with false. Just play around with false here. Try running this, see what false does there, and you'll know. Okay, so I don't need to attach these to anything else, so instead I can just add in my start button and stop button, which technically you don't really need. You can just use hotkeys, right? And I mean, technically you are going to be using hotkeys, which is another thing I'm not going to be adding. I'm not going to be adding in a way of dynamically changing the hotkeys. So here, I can come here and I can change the hotkeys to whatever I want the hotkeys to be. Update them, and then the script will know. And I'm not going to be adding that. You can add that in, where you can type in a hotkey, update it. I do have a tutorial. If you go to my GUI mini tutorial list, one of the end ones, like 30 something, is on adding how to use the hotkey control. So that'll teach you how to add so you can dynamically change your hotkeys. But we're not going to be doing that here, because we're already an hour in. Add button. I'm just going to add a button. I'm going to place it on the X margin, drop it down 10 pixels, and the width I'm going to let it do its own, the height I'm going to let it do its own. I'm going to attach this to a label called start. Start search. Start search, and the text beside it's going to be start. I don't need a variable associated with it. I think I'm good there. So here, where do I want to put this? It doesn't really matter where I put it, but let's go to the bottom. Here, what I'm going to say is I'm going to create a variable. What I want to do now, before I do anything else, is this is something I am going to help you with it's kind of a thing like this. It's a test. It's like, has this been done, or is this working the way has this been set up the way it's supposed to be set up? So what I'm going to do now is, if the script is running, as soon as you interact with this GUI, if you click on anything in it, if you click this while the GUI's running, or while the script's running, or if you click this while the script's running, and doing any of those are going to set a variable to a value of 1. So if I click any of these radio buttons or checkboxes, they go to this routine submit all. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say stop, which is the name of a variable that I'm going to create right now. Stop equals 1. If I hit the set color button, the first thing I'm going to do is say stop colon equals 1. If, let me go ahead and add in another button. So I'm going to take this button, the last button we added, the start button, and I'm going to duplicate this line. Control D. I'm going to position it X plus 10. The Y position is going to be the same. Or I'm going to remove that Y from there. And this is going to be stop. Stop search. Like I said, you're going to most likely be using whatever hotkeys you use, but I like to add the buttons in anyways. Stop search. If we go to stop search, which I'll put down here, it's going to take that variable stop and also set its value to 1. And that's all the stop button's going to do. In the start search though, as soon as I hit the start search button, which is going to be down here, I want to take that stop variable and set its value to 0. And now what I'm going to say is I'm going to say while not stop. Or in other words, while stop equals 0, loop over this stuff here. Alright, so if it's running, so it's looping over and over and over again, stop equals 0. If I hit the stop button, stop now equals 1, that means this is no longer true, exit to the loop. If I click on these, stop equals 1, doesn't equal 0 anymore, so it's exits. Exits, exits, everything exits. View, where's the view? View search area. Stop colon equals 1. If I missed any of the other ones, stop equals 1. I think that should be it. Okay, so while that's happening, now what I'm going to do is I am going to loop the number of things that I've added. So I've only added 5. If you added 10, then you're going to loop 10 times. If you added 5 like me, you're going to loop 5 times. So we're going to loop 5 times. And what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if, we're going to say if that checkbox, which has a variable associated with it called enable 1, enable 2, enable 3, enable 4. So I'm going to say if enable inside of percent marks a index, so whatever loop I'm currently in loop 1, loop 2, loop 3, if enable a index, so if it equals 1, or here I'll add that just so that way it's a little bit more clear, because I've added a few times where I don't. So right here I just said if active, but I could say if active equals 1. That's the same thing here, if enable 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But I can also say if that equals 1. They're equivalent. It's the exact same thing. Or in this case, it's the exact same thing. Because what if it equaled 2? Then, right, if that's enabled, if whatever loop it's in, if that checkbox is enabled, check to see if the color has been set. Okay, so say if there's a color set for that. Or how about if not? So if there's no color set for that, then display a message that says, hey dumbass, you need to set a color or something like that, and then return. I'm just going to leave it like this. You can fill in the rest here. So we're going to check to make sure that color has been set. What else should we do? We should also check to see if we've actually set a search area. So maybe even before we come into this while loop, up here, say, if there's no search area, then we can't start running a search. Pop up a message box, return. Right? So like I said, I'm not going to be adding these things in for you. You're going to do these. But there's only a couple of things. Like making sure that the color's set, making sure the search area is set, and that's pretty much it. So as long as if enable is true, that'll test to make sure that the color is set. If those are true, now go ahead and search that area. So pixel search. This is going to be X. No. How about we call it? I think in the thing they call it found. FX, found X, found Y. There, we'll just use that. Found X, found Y. X, we already have these in our positions. Our positions are set with these variables in mind. So X1, Y1, X2, Y2, and what else do we need? Variation or color. The color ID. The color ID is going to be color A index. So whichever loop I'm going through, it's whatever that color is. Variation, we haven't talked about variation. I haven't added anything in to add variation, but if you wanted to, you could add a little edit box. And when you type in it, it goes to the submit value. It goes to the submit value, which submits whatever you type in to a variable, and use that variable as your variation. So in this one, here I have an edit box. When I type in it, it's got a variable that gets updated with whatever I type in it. And then when I run the script, it looks for that it uses that variation in the pixel search as the variation. You can do likewise. So variation, we're just going to leave it 0. Variation fast and RGB. Don't specifically know what fast means, but I do know what RGB means. But I do know that I also need both of those in there. So fast, RGB. And that's it. Now, depending on whether you have a true or false radio, is where you could differentiate the actions. So I'm going to say, I don't have a true or false in here, so I'm just going to look at the error level. So when this returns, when it does this, performs the search, it's going to give me the error level. It's going to tell me whether it found it or not. So I'm going to say, if there's no error value in the error level, it means there was no errors and it found the color I'm looking for. So I say, if not error level, or I could say if error level equals 0, both are equivalent. If error level equals 0, then what I want to do is I want to check. I'm going to say if what did I call? Clicker move. I called the variable clicker move. if clicker move equals 1, then I want this action. Else if clicker move equals 2, I want to do these actions. Else if clicker move equals 3, do this one. So if clicker move equals 1, that means I want to move. So I am going to mouse move to found X, found Y. If I want to add an offset, so it's going to look for the very first pixel, and I might need to add I might want to add an offset. So maybe you might want to add another edit to do an offset. So for me, with mine, I do a command line, and the offset is one of the options. So here and here, I think. So the 4th is the X offset, and Y, the 5th is the Y offset. So now, like I said before, now we can do searches from here up to here, or from here down to here, or from here up to there. So now the offset, you're really going to have to, depending on which way you go, you're going to want to maybe play around with that value. You definitely might want to add in a way of doing an offset, because now you might want a negative. So let's say I'm looking for this gray square. I don't want to click on the first pixel it finds, which would be like right there, because then I might miss it. What I really probably want to do is I probably want to click more towards the center. Now, me going into it, I know how big this square is, so in order for me to get to the center, this thing is 20 pixels by 20 pixels. So if I offset by 10 pixels for each the X and the Y, if I take that found X and found Y and I add 10 to it, then it'll click approximately to the center. But if I'm searching from here up to here, then at least one of those values, actually both of those values, I would need to, it's going to find this pixel first, so my offset would need to be -10, -10. Right? So depending on which way you set your search area, your offset's going to need to be adjusted for that. So we're not going to worry too much about the offset. I'm not going to do any offset. It's going to, wherever it finds that pixel, that's what it's going to click. So if it's 1, move there. If it's 2, click there. And we're going to be clicking at FX, FY. Else we're going to be sending. Send we're gonna, I don't actually want to send anything right now. I don't actually want, but you would send, actually I will do it. I'll do it. I'm gonna send, first of all I need to activate something. So let's say I have my notepad open, right? So let's say here, I'm gonna set, okay, so let's say I search this area for this color. If I find that color, click here, somewhere here, and then type something. So I'm going to say, what I'm going to actually do is, because I don't want to actually look where that position is, I'm just going to move this over here. So I'm going to say click, let's say 100 pixels X, 100 pixels Y. So that will, the reason why I'm doing that is because right now this window is the active window. So if I run the search and this is the active window when it finds it, if I'm sending something, as soon as I send something, it's going to send it to the active window. So I need a way of activating the window I actually want to send it to, which is this window. So to do that, I'm going to first tell it to click. Now this window is active. Now I can send some text to it. So I'm going to click on that window to activate it. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to send hello. That's it. That's all I'm going to have it send. Okay, I think, knock on wood, we have a working program. Let me bring up my pixel target script. And I'm going to enable this one, set its color, set my search area. I'm going to view my search area. Okay, that looks good. And I'm just going to have it move. And if I hit start now, I'm going to be in problems. So before I do that, what I'm going to do is in the stop search, I'm going to have a hotkey that I can activate this with. So for me, I'm just going to use numpad 1. So by either hitting the button start or by pressing the hotkey numberpad 1, both of them will execute this. Likewise, for the stop search, I can either hit the button on the GUI or I can hit numberpad 2 to stop. Because if I started that script before I actually added those hotkeys, it's just going to start moving there. So anyways, set the color, enable it, set the search area. I'm going to just have it move, and I'm going to have it start. And there, it's moving to that spot. Okay, so that's working properly. Numberpad 2 to stop. What I will do is, for this stop hotkey, I want this numberpad 2 to work no matter what. I don't care if I'm holding control or the L button down or sending some other keys while I press it. If I press numberpad 2 and any other key, it doesn't matter any other key, I want it to stop. I don't want something I don't want to be using send, and while it's sending something, I'm trying to stop the script, but it's not letting me because it's sending multiple keys at the same time. So I'm going to add an asterisk to that guy. So now if I hold control plus numberpad 2, it's still going to work. If I hold shift and numberpad 2, it's still going to work. No problem. Alright, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this button here. Add button. It's supposed to be X plus 10. Target. So enable, set color, set search area. Okay, we did move, so I'll do that again. Here, I'll use my hotkey numberpad 1, and there it's went to that spot. If I try to move my cursor away, it keeps moving back. Numberpad 2 stops. Now I'm going to change it to click, and now it should click it, find it again, click it, find it again, over and over again. Numberpad 1, and there we go. Okay, numberpad 2 to stop it. Last thing, the send. Now for the send, you might want to add another edit so that way you can type in what you want to set instead of having it hard-coded like I have here. You don't want it to be hard-coded, you want to use a variable. Send the variable value, and the variable value will be part of an edit. Like this. Alright. If I send that, that's what I'll be sending. If I run the script again, I can do it again. I don't have to come into the code. So like I said, I'm going to do send. Since I moved this, I'm going to change my search area. Let me make sure I don't get any bugs for going backwards. Alright, so if it finds that, it's going to click at 100 by 100 and then send that text. And there it did. And it's keeping doing it over and over and over again. Numberpad 2 to stop. And I think that's it. I think we are done. I hope you enjoyed. If you're coming to this video like a year late or whatever, be sure to, before you start doing this, check my my home page in the auto clicker section to see if I actually have created a multi-search if you're just looking for that. But that's it. Oh yeah, let's look for multiple colors. Let's make sure that's working. So I'm going to move set color. How about that? No, let's do that. That and what other color? Sure. Move, set search area, and start. Now it should just start going through those. Oh, number pad 2. Since I only enabled 2 of them, it's only going to do 2 of them. So there we go. And there it goes. Alright, well anyways, that is it. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I am tired. I am done. Hopefully you enjoyed. Peace, I am out.